All right, everybody. Today I wanted to talk about early access, the good and the bad. Okay, there are two types of early access. Let's remember here. Okay.
Yes. I had that here. Yes.
Yeah. So there's the true early access, the true one. I guess the good one, in my opinion.
The true?
So when the game is set to release, or when a company is set to release a full game, they'll probably be like, oh, you get 2 weeks early access if you buy the deluxe edition, kind of like what they did with Starfield and other games. Okay. So the people can buy their deluxe edition, get 2 weeks or a week head start on everybody for an extra, I don't know, $20, let's say.
Yes.
Right? I said before, I don't mind this practice because the game is full. It's a full game about to be released. You know you're going to get a quote-unquote full game. Okay?
I disagree.
Okay. Full game, ready for launch. So, like, you get excited, and then you just want to get into that game. So you pay an extra $20, and you get in for a week early.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
the biggest fucking scam there is.
Why do you think it's a scam?
It's a scam. Because, like, the game is ready. Just launch it. They're gouging people an extra $20 for a game that they're just going to release in 5 days anyway. And they're just releasing it early, and they're gouging people.
But you don't
Why not
have to do
release
that.
it 5 days early?
Because then, why
No,
don't they just...
You don't
Release
have to
it
do
5
it,
days
but
earlier
then
than that.
you're not playing the game while everyone else is. So
Yeah, but
they
the FOMO,
basically,
bro.
yeah, they take advantage of you through your FOMO to try to gouge you for an extra $20 on an already $80
Do you get
game.
rewards though? Do you
Yeah,
get any
you
sort
get
of
other-
exclusive?
You get a
other
reward
stuff.
of playing the game 5 days early.
Yeah, but with the deluxe, it's not just early access. They'll give you a skin or an
Like
item
that's a
or
gotcha.
whatever.
That's a gotcha. They're trying to gut you with a full paid game.
Yeah.
But then that brings us back
Yeah,
to how
I see that.
how they're trying to charge more for their games without actually charging more for the games, right? Because how Capcom said that games prices are going to go up. So would you rather spend, like, not get early access? Because they're going to gouge you anyway in a couple of years when all games are going to be $120.
They're just, I don't think there's a benefit of it at all in terms of the consumer. Like, they're just feeding on the instant gratification that consumers
Yeah, of course.
crave.
Yes.
It's like the game
consumers
is
are
probably not
consumed
even not even done yet. Like, there's probably bugs and shit anyway that's going to happen. They're just kind of, that's all happening. That's another thing. That's all going to happen in the early access, all the crashing and the fucking issues.
Mhm.
Like, if you wait till
If I saw-
regular
That's
launch,
true. Yeah, that's true.
you're going to get a smoother, because they're going to figure out the shit during the early access that people pay extra for that's probably broken. And you know what I mean?
If I saw there was
I don't
some
like it.
cool thing that I really wanted, that's like, oh shit, like a skin or something, and I was like, I don't fucking care. Like, if I'll play, if I get that kind of cool thing, but nobody else does because I got it early access or whatever, then I might consider it. But I honestly, did we do that with Starfield? Was that early
Yeah,
access?
I
Not
did.
really, eh?
I did.
Is that technically what it was?
No, I didn't, because I
A week
was
before?
finishing Baldur's Gate, so I didn't do it.
Yes.
There's always something else to play,
I
guys. You
did.
don't need to play
Yeah,
fucking
okay.
early
Yeah.
access and pay $30 more. That's idiocy. It's absolutely dumb.
Very, very strong take.
Listen,
over
buddy, fuck you, okay?
Stop
I wanted to
doing
play
it.
Starfield.
there. So I did the same with Diablo 4. I bought the deluxe edition, got my early access, got my little skins,
Mhm.
I enjoyed that. The early access was fantastic.
That's a game that's big time taking advantage of the FOMO, because you have to get levels. You
Oh,
have
yeah.
to
Yeah.
you have to grind.
You have to be in front of everybody.
But you got to get 5 days early on the grind. Like,
Yeah.
fuck you. No
Mhm.
way, man. I don't like that. I don't like it.
Genius.
So that's the one type of early
That's
access.
the one type of early access. Okay. The one that I actually don't mind buying into.
I don't.
Now, there's the other early access. There's pros and cons for this one as well. Okay, so a game is getting released, or you hear about this game. Like, oh, I'm really excited about this game. And they're like, oh, it's coming early access.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, and it's like 50% off early access. You can get into the game and play early. It's not done. You know, they'll plaster that
Right.
everywhere. Make sure you know that it's early access. There's going to be bugs. The quests aren't going to be complete. It's not a full game, yada, 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 but you're still going to pay
It's kind of in
$50,
beta.
right? Sometimes not even beta. Sometimes even before beta.
Yeah.
Sometimes this early access shit lasts for 2 fucking years.
Yes, that's what I
Okay.
I think this is like a double-edged sword almost for the developers anyway, because did these games even ever really release? Like, I don't remember a release of an early access game other than the early access
That
release.
lasted that
Like,
long?
did they ever have like a launch event saying, "Oh, we're no longer in"? I've never seen it.
So, here's an example. Temtem, I bought in early access. I got it for like 50% off,
Yeah.
and I spent 100 hours in that game, and I haven't even finished it yet. I spent 100 hours, or I did 100 hours in that game before early access was done. Okay, and I didn't finish that game. They did have a big announcement. They did a big event in game. They released on multiple consoles for the full release. Okay, and then whenever that full release came, even more people came in, and then it blew up some more. It had some life. I went back in, but the game was so fucking hard, and I didn't know where I was because I kept leaving and coming back because on these early access games, you go in and you hit the content cap or the content ceiling that they've developed for, and you're like, okay, well, I'll see you in a couple of months, I guess, when you release the next.
Or you get sick of it before it's even officially released. This is like what happened to Palworld. Like, I put in 60 hours of Palworld in early access. I don't play 60 hours of many games. I'm not really gonna. I don't really feel like going back and playing that, even when it's fully released.
Released, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
There's no.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Whether the developers need the money to help develop the game, so they allow people to play it in early access when it's not done. So it gives them a revenue stream to help develop the game to FOC. I don't know. It's like full operating. I forget what it stands for, but for the full version. But like, who's going to play?
So is that because
much
there's
of the
a
game?
lack of investors these days? Like actual investors?
Well, people are
that these
closing fucking
developers have to
studios
hunt down.
Like all these studios closing and all
Like,
this shit.
there's so many independent developers now that have to rely on this as their revenue stream to fund their game, right? They can't go to. They're not like. They can't go to these board of investors anymore and like find all these people that are gonna like. They have to go to the fans who want to play it, and it's definitely a double-edged sword.
Because when they go to these big companies to fund their games, then that big company has the say-so of when or if they're going to close the studio after, right? So like they're like, oh, okay, they'll say, oh, we'll buy your company for a 51% share or something, right? And they give you all this money, and you're like, cha-ching! You're like, yeah, and you take that money, right? And you make your game, and then afterwards they're like, it's not selling well, we want our money back, yada yada yada. To do this, you're gonna have to do this, this, and this. And if we don't get our money back, we're firing people. We're closing the studio. If you have an independent, studio, and you don't go to these guys, early access and crowdfunding is probably the way to go, right? You get your money from the people who want to play your game. And then, you develop it as you have that revenue stream in. You come up with updates to entice more people to buy into the early access, right? You show your progress so people buy into the early access to keep you going, that kind of shit.
I don't know. It's also kind of, it gives them kind of an excuse too, though, to hide behind. It's like, oh, it's early access.
It's early access, yep.
Hey, the game's not that good, but it's early access. But you charged people for the game. They gave you money for a product.
Yeah.
Although they knew that it's not done. But like that gray fucking whatever the fuck game you play, it was awful. It's egregious to have charged money for that. Egregious. I refunded. I was like, this game is not a game.
Sorry, Daniel.
Gone are the days. Gone are the days where you had passionate people making video games, finding passionate investors who believed in these games, who are like, no, I believe in you, are making something very special here, and I want to invest.
We talked about that last
episode. To develop those relationships and those rapports, right? And now it has to do with that instant gratification. Oh, we need this game out now because we need fucking money now, or
the dopamine fix.
I said that last episode.
Revenue streams. Yeah.
In the last 5 years, the gaming industry has completely changed since the launch of Fortnite. Free to play game with microtransactions up the wazoo. Ever since that, it was 5 years ago, right? whenever that was, 6 years ago. The gaming industry is completely fucking changed
I don't
because
really
these
know.
guys are making so much fucking money now that it's not about what the game is. They don't care about the gamer. They don't care about you. They care about EA cares about making $3 billion on Apex Legends microtransactions. That's
Okay,
all they
well-
fucking care about.
Well, a con and a pro as well for this is you get it at a discount, right? So like I like getting games at discounts.
Sure.
If a game like Temtem, it was like
How much
I
is
think that
Temtem
was-
now?
oh, it's
Did it go up?
probably like no, I think it released at full price like $80, but now it's down like discounts now. I see it on PlayStation for like $30 now. Right? All the pros for this kind of model is what Temtem is. The game was great. It was completely solid. All the time I played in early access, I had zero issues with crashing, bugs, all that shit. The only thing was that the content was a bit slower to come out, so you'd hit that ceiling and then you'd vanish for a month or so, come back, hit that ceiling again, you know? But like they were active on their social medias, they were active on the Steam community page, they were telling people what's going on, like all that stuff, like all the pros to this early access stuff, Temtem and their developer like handled it perfectly. And that is a game where I was like, you know what? I would have paid full price for this anyway. Like I would have paid $90 for this, but the fact that I'm getting it for $40 and I get to play a year earlier than it releases, I'm all for that. But it's all such a gamble because you don't know who's behind the curtain, right? You don't know who's pulling the strings and doing all this stuff. As long as they're transparent and they like give all that information and they keep on updating the game, I don't see. I like getting games for cheap. Is the end.
No
is
shit.
the end of it. Yeah, I like getting games for cheap, and if I can put in like 40 hours into an early access game, like that's pretty fucking good. If
Yeah,
I can
but
put
then
100
Are you
hours
gonna
into an
play
early
it
access
later?
game,
Probably not.
no.
Like for me, I'm not
I don't know.
going to put
I-
60 hours into early access and then play it again for another 100 hours. Like I'm probably done with it.
Neither would
Yeah.
Neither
Yeah.
would I. I think
For
that
most of the case, yes, I
there
agree
is there is something to the video gamers experience. There's a magic to the anticipation of an official release of a game, and I think that part of the excitement of a new game is ruined by early access. And there's a lot of kind of like little things that come up, like you get a game early access and then let's say it's 2 years away, and then and then the game gets fucking stuck in limbo because all they're getting, like Star Citizen, right? One of the biggest early access games out there right now.
I don't even think it's at early access yet.
They're just stuck in limbo because they're getting all the funding they need. What fucking point? What reason do they have to launch the game now? There is no incentive to. There is zero incentive
It's
to
also
be
a
like,
huge, mega, massive game that they're just like no end to. That they are way like they're over ambitious. I feel like
yes,
they're
but
trying
I
to
think
do
that
all
they
this.
knew that going in.
It's
But
a
is there-
persistent
which is why
universe.
they-
do they
man.
have?
There's no
do
way.
they have a switch point where it's like, okay, it's an actually full game? Like, is there a point in their brain where they say, once
don't
we hit
think-
this milestone,
Maybe at
it's a
this
full
point,
release?
No, at this point, probably not.
I don't think
They're
so.
It's just there, and
Well,
you can come in and
They need to come
pledge
up with
and
a
play.
The industry needs to come up with a new term then for games that are going to end up doing that. Because like, don't call it early access then. Don't even give us that fucking
Hope.
Just call the game
That's gonna
what it
come up.
is. Like, come up with a new word that describes
Just
a
live
game
service.
that is ongoing.
It's a live
Ongoing.
service game. That's all it is.
Well, there you go. Okay,
Yeah.
so I don't know. It's stupid because then it just takes away like the best gaming memories I have and experiences are where I couldn't wait to play this game because it just came out and it's on the fucking shelf at a store because I still buy physical, and I go and I buy it and I take it home, I unwrap it, and I'm like, cool, man, it's out. You know, you update it a little bit and then you play it, and
Yeah,
then it gets
update it a
updates
little
as
bit.
it goes. Yeah.
Get that
Yeah, a
one
little bit, a
copy
lot,
of
whatever.
Harvest Moon, Back to Nature.
Oh yeah,
the
I
only
remember
copy
that.
on the
That's
shelf.
burned in my brain.
Yeah.
I made that guy so
I
sad.
just think it's
And how do we know it was coming out that day? PlayStation
magazine.
Magazine.
PlayStation Magazine.
PlayStation Magazine. Yeah. Read it on Magazine.
And then we called the micro game. I don't remember what the fuck it was called.
Microplay?
Microplay?
Game Tech?
Tech? Yeah, Game Tech. Are you getting this tomorrow? Yeah. Yeah, we got one copy. Oh! And then you got to be there at fucking 8 a.m.
And I lined up, and,
And of course, no one.
I lined up. I was there, and there was one guy behind me, and I was like, "What are the odds
He wanted it.
that this guy wants Harvest Moon as well?" So then I got in, I grabbed it off the shelf, and he's like, and then he turned around and walked right out.
Oh man, that's sad.
Yeah, isn't that sad?
That's sad.
That makes my heart hurt. Like I hope he got to play it one day.
Imagine
Like,
he never
he
played
probably
it.
went to Ottawa or
Imagine
something.
he never played Harvest Moon's
And he's been
Back to
searching for
Nature.
me ever since. Well, I went like 45 minutes before they opened. I was like, "There's no way there's gonna be a lineup for Harvest Moon." You know what I mean? And then like
But there
how-
was.
Well, now
It
I'm
was you.
heartbroken for
It was
that
like
guy.
20 minutes to the store open, and Buddy walked behind me. I was like, "There's no fucking way." It's like 20 minutes. Yeah, I can see some because like I went to Canada Computer today, and people were lined up out there just to get into the store. You know what I mean? There's nothing being released today. They just wanted to get into the store at 10 a.m. sharp. So that's maybe what he was doing just to get in there. But like,
Well, anyway, I think that is part, but maybe that's an older generation of
Yeah.
gamer experience. Like, I think that's part. Nobody knows what that's like anymore. Not these fucking young whippersnappers.
Yeah.
But like that's part of gaming for me, and I still look for that experience. I want to buy a game when it's out officially. I don't like. I think, Jonathan, you probably said what I have the biggest problem with is the whole hide behind thing. Like, oh, we're releasing this game and it's not done yet, though. Because, like, I know what that's like creating something and having to put it out in the world. I've said that before. I know what that's like to be, like, not sure about it. And then, like, okay, well, let's do early access where maybe we'll get some feedback on it. Or
Imagine
whatever. It's just
early
like, no,
access for
sack up
music.
and fucking stand behind the game that you're making. And, it's just persistence and whatever. Because then what? You get all this feedback, and when is your game going to be finished?
Daniel, you
Make
should
the
do it
deadline,
next
like-
on your next album, Early Access.
early access and give everyone
Early
30
access
seconds.
album.
of
It's just a
each
drum
song.
track. It's just a drum track
Where
for
do you
every
think
song.
this song should go?
Yeah, it's just a drum track for every song. Hey,
No, yeah,
early
30
access.
seconds. 30 seconds for each song, and then keep releasing like 20 more seconds of each song every like 3 months.
Yeah.
That's so stupid. That is
Well,
so
I
dumb.
just think that I think that,
That's it's a good metaphor.
if you want
analogy.
feedback from a player base, that makes sense. That makes sense. If you want feedback
you
from
can
a player
still
base,
have a
but there's
beta,
also that.
but they just want the cash.
yeah.
I think it mostly started though for indie games where they didn't want to sell their souls, right? So they'd present a crowdfunder, and they said, "Listen,
Yeah.
like when it started, these people were actually like the devs were actually giving it their all and just showing what they can do so they could create these games. Then people were like, wow, people are actually paying for this? Let's fuck them, right? There's always two parties.
It's mostly just smaller studios, obviously. Like,
And then it
otherwise
snowballed,
they would
right?
have open beta. Like Blizzard had an open beta weekends for Diablo 4, and they were massive, like millions of people. But it's a huge game, and it's a huge fan base already. These other games that are doing this early kind of access release stuff are small studios, that don't have the money to, they need the money. So, I mean, you can say they're hiding behind the early access, but they do need the money to help develop the game.
Yeah,
but it's also like
there's
you're not really
multiple
going to get a
reasons.
lot of people coming back for the full release.
like take
But
the,
they don't care maybe because they already sold the game they already sold the game. They already got sales for the early access.
Yeah.
like take what's it called? No Rest for the Wicked. Okay. So for instance, No Wicked what was it called?
No. What's
No
the name of
Rest
this
for the
fish?
Wicked. Fuck's
Got
sake.
filter fish.
No Rest for the Wicked. So I was looking forward to this game, No Rest for the Wicked. I was like, oh man, it looks great. It's sweet. It's going to come out to Game Pass, right? First day on Game Pass, yada, yada, yada. And then they're like, oh, we'll do early access on Steam, right? So it's going to come out this day on early access, and then a year later or something, it's going to come out to Game Pass for free, quote unquote. And I was like, I didn't like it. I didn't like it, right? And the amount they're charging for this early access was like $55, like almost $60 for early access. Like, what the fuck? That's a lot of money for early access. And then that just turned me off. And I was like, no,
Yeah.
I don't need to play this.
Well, what's the most you would pay for an early access?
40
40?
bucks, 30, 35, 30 bucks, 30, 40
Yeah, it
bucks.
should not be like, it should be maybe
it's a-
half, 50%.
If it's a
maybe.
triple A game, like let's say Mass Effect 5 comes out, and they're like, "Oh, we're doing early access, and you can buy it for $50." I'd be like, "Oh,
They wouldn't though. They're big enough that
Right,
they would do it.
but I'm
open
just saying,
beta.
like let's say a huge double A game that's got a lot of traction. Let's say that Wukong game that's coming out,
Mhm.
like that the Unreal Engine 5 one, that's got some traction going, you know, and they're like, "Oh, it's coming out in a month in early access, and we'll charge $50 for that." I'd be like, "Oh." I'd really think hard on that one. You know, and then like, and a year later, it'll be fully released for $100. I'd be like, oh,
I think the hype. There's a decent amount of hype on that, so they would
Yeah.
probably make money.
yeah, exactly. But like these,
But I think they have a decent enough amount of hype that they probably don't need to do that because
Mhm.
they could make more selling the game at full price
pre-orders.
when it's ready. Then people will just buy it. Whereas the games that need to do this are games that they want to build hype on, you know, and they don't have hype, and they're smaller studios, so they need to charge people to get them in the door to help them cover resource
To
costs.
try the game out.
Like that Manor
Would
Lords
you guys
game.
say that?
Mm.
Would you guys say that early access is like the new generation of demoing? Then we used to get demos on the fucking
Yeah, but those are
CDs
like-
from like the magazines.
You kind of paid for
They
them
were
when you
free,
buy the magazine.
granted.
Yeah, but they're
In a
also
way.
really small.
Yeah.
In a small way.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's a beta. It's a
But
demo.
is this the new form of demoing?
No,
you
because
know?
there's still
No,
demos
It's like
that
they're
you
you're
can get for
trying
free.
the game.
There's still free demos that people offer.
They still do that shit?
Yeah.
Remember the Steam Next Fest? That's all demos.
Yeah.
Okay.
Steam has a whole
Interesting.
event.
Interesting. So demoing is in fact different than early access
Man,
these days.
You can go on your PlayStation and there's a whole like filter for just demos. And there's tons of demos on the PlayStation Store. So some bad early access experiences for me. I'm going to talk about those. Remember DayZ?
Yeah.
That was
Ugh,
perpetually
yeah.
early access. That was in
I
early
guess that's
access
a
for
shared-
like 10 years.
A shared experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
We must have played 500 hours in that game. Like, we were on that game constantly, like 8 hours a day. And it was a piece of shit. The game was a piece of shit, but it was so fun when you
Yeah.
had like 4 or 5
It was
guys.
cool.
Yeah, and it was like
Yeah.
it was like the first survival horror, like survival crafting, like horror game.
But the fucking zombies
PvP.
running through the walls and
Yeah.
just making the game pointless. Like, I just survived for 2 hours
Mm-hmm.
to have this fucking zombie run through the door and kill me. Like, what? Come on.
But that was early access. That was like the first
man.
big early access game, and it was garbage. And we played it constantly, and we bought into that because it was like a
Yeah.
mod off Arma 3, which then released.
Not
its-
only did you have to, not only did you have to buy it, you had to fucking mod the thing yourself. You had to buy Arma first, Arma 2.
that was before,
And then you were able, And then you were able
But
to.
then-
so you had to buy Arma 2 first.
yeah. But then they actually made a DayZ product.
Yes,
Early access.
Yes.
Yeah, and then I think if you bought Arma 3, you like got the DayZ like product or something like that. I don't remember buying it twice. I would not have bought it twice. But like, but that was massive. We used to play that all the time, and we loved it, but we hated it so much. And I was like, and I
Yeah.
remember making a bet with PQ. He's like, "Oh, he's like, we got to go back to DayZ." I'm like, "I'm not going back to that game." I'm like, "I'll go
Yeah.
back when they fully release it."
Don't make me go back there, man.
Like, I'll go back to it when they fully release it. I was like, which is never going to happen. It's always been, it will always ever be in early
Is it
access.
still?
I think it actually finally got fully released.
Yeah, it released December 13th, 2018.
Okay. We were playing that
Officially.
a long time ago. Yeah.
It is
Officially version 1?
$68.
Yeah. Fuck that. So, yeah, DayZ, that was a big one. There was another one called Nether that I bought into. A post-apocalyptic monster survival game. was really cool. Like the early access was cool. It felt really like scary and stuff like that. And then as the early access went on, it got really shitty. They changed ownership. Some other company bought the game dev studio, and then they started pushing like microtransactions. The development cycle stopped. There was like no updates for months and months and months, and it went silent. And then they rebranded the game, re-released the game. Like that kind of bullshit happens all the time in early access.
Yeah. Yeah,
No?
you're more like that's what you're signing up for though when you're buying early access game. So I mean, some people don't care about taking that risk, but
Yeah.
it is a risk. I mean,
And there
You have
are
to have
some
that
rewards.
expectation.
the game
I
could
think.
never come out.
Yeah, exactly. The
Like,
game could
so
just
you're
stop.
buying a game that could literally just go under, tits up. But you're going to give them $40.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, you become the investor.
You could go get your hair
it's
cut
the
for
way it
$40
is. It's the same
Yeah,
thing.
but you become the investor and then you don't get any say in anything.
Yeah.
Right?
You don't get anything.
You don't
yes,
get
it's
anything.
almost a worse deal. Yeah, it's a worse deal. You can
Like you're putting
know,
your money on the line in hopes that these guys are legitimate and that they have heart to finish their project. And if they don't, then there he goes. $40.
I think I can't speak for anybody, but from a personal point of view, you know, if I had anything to say bottom line about early access, it's just that, first of all, it's an immersion thing for me. I would never do early access, especially far out from a deadline or sorry, from a release date or has no release date. I would never do that for a game I really, really want to play, like something that looks incredible, something that's really anticipated to me, blah, blah, blah. I would not do that because I don't want to be disappointed. I don't want to be running into bugs and all this shit that's not complete. And it like immersion breaks for me. Like it breaks the immersion because that's what I need from a game. I've told you that, guys. I've told you that to you guys before. I need the immersion. And if I'm pulled out of that from a game that just feels like there's just a fake world pulled in front of my eyes and it's like shitty and there's no depth to it and there's no whatever because it's not done yet, I can't have that. If it was a game I didn't give a shit about, and I was like, oh, that looks kind of cool. Maybe that looks fun. You know, I might play that. Then sure. Because like, I don't care either way. I'm not invested emotionally either, not just financially, you know? So if it was a huge game, like, you know, like you said, something like a huge game like Starfield was half complete. And they're like, here, you can pay, you know, $40 to play it. I'd be like, no, I'm not fucking doing that. I'm waiting for you to finish that game so that I can play it as you intended it to be. So I think it's just dangerous. If you're somebody who really loves immersion and you run the risk of getting heartbroken because you've spent this money to play a game that you don't know when it's going to come out, whatever, don't do it. Just don't do it. It's easy. Like you said, Jonathan, there's lots of other games to play.
Yeah, there's tons.
Absolutely.
If you don't really care, you know, if you don't really care and it looks kind of interesting to you, that's kind of cool. It might be fun to just kind of, you know, piss the time away a little bit. Then sure, whatever. I think you have to set an expectation for yourself as a gamer and be like, this is what I expect going into this. This is what could happen.
And
Blah, blah,
control
blah,
and control
you know?
your FOMO.
Controlling the
Yeah.
FOMO. Stop the
Control
FOMO.
Yeah.
Because like if everyone's in early access and all these news articles are writing about how great this game is, but it's early access, yada yada yada, and you're like, but I want to just wait till it's full, and that it's not getting released for another year and a half, and you're like, it won't be on anybody's mind in a year
That's
and a half.
such a punch in the dick. You're just like, wow.
Like it won't be on
Was
anybody's
Gollum
mind.
early access?
No, I
Did
don't
they
think
do
so.
an early access for Gollum, or did they just release that when they thought it was finished, kind of thing?
I think they just released
You
it.
still
That
got to
was
give us
that's
your
a good
review
example
of
of a
that.
game.
You got to do it, Dan.
I know. That's a good example of
I
a game
know.
that could have maybe used player feedback before fucking seeing it finished. You know what I mean? Like they should have been, so they could have been like, no, this
No,
is
they probably
not
knew
good.
it was
You need to
awful,
fix
and
it."
They
they
knew
didn't
it was
want
fucking
people
awful.
to
Yeah,
play.
yeah.
They
They're
were
And they were
relying
banking
so
on it.
ironic.
They were
No.
banking
They're
on that
hiding
$90
behind their-
Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings fans.
Yeah.
No, they're Lord of the
they're
Rings
hiding
fans,
behind their official release date.
established fan base, loyal fans who want something. That they completely took advantage of that. There's no way they would have had early access on that. No way. Nope.
Yeah.
Or even imagine on a beta and people are like, this is the worst game ever made.
Yeah, like what the hell?
There
is
it
this?
goes.
No
See ya.
way.
They wouldn't even have a chance.
Yeah. No way they do that.
Yeah, so they had to just hide and be like, no, let's just release this when we think it's finished, and that didn't even work for them. So they literally couldn't win.
Yeah, they couldn't.
They couldn't.
Not
win.
on that.
They
piece
had
of
no fucking chance.
shit. Not on that piece of garbage.
There was a study done. I don't know who did it. I'd have to check the source. It says using Steam's early access of November 2014 found that granted that was a while ago, only 25% of titles submitted as early access had made it to a final release form.
Wow, really? So a quarter of the games.
According to GamesIndustry.biz.
That's horrible.
That was quite a while ago, though.
Oh, up to that. That was only
But
like a
that
year.
may have
though.
changed since. I mean, that was.
But that's the
Because
thing, right?
Steam's early access program started in 2013, so that was only a year after. So that might not be
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
relevant.
And there's a lot more nowadays, and they take a while to come out. So even if someone did do a new study or survey, right, there's going to be X amount that they can't even jot down because there won't be out for another year, 2 years. But like with all that we've been said, I think we can probably final thoughts here.
I just don't. I don't like doing it,
Okay.
especially not the early like release access. I don't know
Like
how
the
you-
deluxe early access
Yeah,
stuff.
deluxe bullshit. No fucking way. No.
So Jonathan says no.
But for other, it depends on the game, I guess, for the other
Yeah.
style. But I don't like the idea of it, as I said, because it's like I'm not going to go back to it. So do I pay money now and just not play it? Maybe you could do that. If there's a game, but then you're not getting anything literally because it could not come to fruition. So I just say in general, I don't like it.
Well, it also affects reviews and game critics, right? Like they can't give you a full review of a game that's not done yet. So it also bleeds into that the review aspect of things. Like we use reviews to decide what we're going to play. And so if we see these reviews of like a game that's not done, okay, so that's first impressions. Oh, okay, so maybe I can't take that. I'll take it with a grain of salt, kind of thing. I mean, just as you can with every other review.
Yeah, but it's not going to say
because
this review was
but you
given
can't-
during early access. It doesn't say that on the review. It says maybe a date.
well,
And then you would have to say, "Oh,
Yeah.
that was
Ah,
during early access."
I think
You're not gonna
Steam.
know that.
I think Steam stamps it.
Does
So
it?
of time of review? If it's in early access, it'll have a little early access like tag on your
Oh.
review.
Okay.
Well, some websites, I was just doing some reading, and some websites like Polygon and Eurogamer have thoughts. Like Polygon says they feel better providing commentary on any product that is being sold to customers, but because they recognize that early access titles are still in progress games, they approach them a bit differently. And Eurogamer will only formally review retail versions of the game after its release. It may give like initial impressions, but I don't think it'll
preview?
actually score it.
Yeah,
or
because there
anything.
are things
Yeah.
called previews.
Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just a dangerous thing. You got to be careful. Protect yourself and your money and your emotions with early access. I think as a gamer.
For me, for how I play games, I'm like 60-40 on this, 60 pro, 40 con. So obviously I've bought into early access games. Like obviously, some of these were duds, but some of them were good. Like Temtem was good. Gray Zone, I did play 25 hours of it. Like I enjoyed it. I knew it was early access. I got frustrated, but I knew it was early access. Like, will I go back whenever there's more updates? Yes, I will. There's those other games that stole my money, like Nether, and I think it was called Infestation Zombie Zero or something like that.
Fuck like that.
Like that one was a complete scam. Like I'm probably sure that they stole my credit card and used it on like whatever. But like I played that
I'm
one.
probably sure.
It was like a DayZ clone back when DayZ was really big. So these scams started coming up, right? These early access ones where they'd do any kind of zombie survival game. And I bought into that one. The devs disappeared. The game never got updated. It got re-released and renamed like 3 or 4 times in early access again and just kept stealing people's money. Like, just like a, right? So on one side, I say, if it's a game that I'm looking forward to and it's a decent entry price into the early access, I don't mind it. Because A, I'm helping developers fund the project. If it's an indie developer or if it's a lower income studio, like a AA or like a single A studio, something like that, I don't mind. But if it's like I'm like on the fence and I read a few reviews of the early access and they're fucking terrible, and I'm like, okay, no, I'm not going to do this again. But like Temtem deserved my money for that early access and my 100 hours I put into it. It was fantastic. I have no regrets about going early access on Temtem. None whatsoever. So like I'm like a 60-40 here. The deluxe early
Temtem
access
was
stuff.
cheap though. It was only $20 or something.
No, it was like $35 for early access.
I think I got
Which
a
is fine. Like the
sale on
price was
early
there.
access.
Yeah, like the price was there. Like I will not pay $60 for an early access game. Like that is something. Like there's a level for me. There's like a cutoff. Like if you're charging more than 50% for like the early access, like No Wicked for World Man there, then like I'm not going to buy the game for $60 to watch you develop it and play it and then get sick of it when I can buy it for $20 more on release and get the full game. Like I'm not going to do that. So it's a give and take, and it's a 60-40 kind of thing. Am I scared that all games in the future are going to be early access release and no one's actually going to get a full game? Yeah. I'm scared that that's just going to be the way it is. It's like all games are going to be early access or thrown on Game Pass, you know?
I don't think
And
it'll happen with AAA. Like it's not going to happen with AAA titles. Like
Yeah.
they don't need
Yeah.
to do that, so
Yeah.
they're not going to do it. But
So, yes,
I don't
it's
think
good
you have
and it's
anything
bad.
to fear.
It's
Young
good and it's
Frodo.
bad, but you know, just do what feels right for you. And if you were dead set on buying this game anyway when it came out, why not? Right? If you were following the developer, they
Yeah.
seem legitimate, they seem like they care. Why not? Right? Especially if you're getting
If
it
you
at a
don't
discount.
care,
But just
if you're
be
a
wary.
technical gamer and you're
Yeah.
in development or you're fascinated by development, sure, buy the early access, see how it plays, see how it feels, learn
Mm-hmm.
about it, whatever, you know. But like, if you want a fucking gaming experience, I don't think that early access is really the right way to go.
Mhm.
If you want like a good experience, anyway.
Yep. That's where I stand. Yeah, I wish I could say a yes or no, but I just can't because I've had good experiences. So I'm still on the fence at 60-40. 60-40. 60 for pro, 40 for con.
All
So
right.
I'd say I'm leaning more on the yes.
Well, we'll have to ask our viewers what
Yes.
they think. So let us know in the comments. What do you think? Are you a pro early access in either form of early access, the deluxe edition or the early access development edition,
Mhm.
or version, I guess we could say? Let us know in the comments what you think.
Alrighty, and that's it for this week's episode. We want to thank everyone for tuning in, listening, or watching on YouTube. Please be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and give us a rating or review on Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen to the podcast or watch the videos. You know, it helps us get out there to more listeners who may enjoy the show. Also, we are now part of the SuperPod Network, a network of podcasts you can find, browse, and check out over on superpodnetwork.com. Remember, you can always leave us a DM on Facebook and Instagram or tweet us if you want to leave a comment or ask us any questions. Thanks, everybody, and we hope you have a wonderful day. Peace.
See you later.
See ya.